My friends, someone asked me not long ago, Jim, why can't I stay disciplined? Why do I start strong and then fall apart halfway through the week? And I smiled. Because that question has been chasing human beings since the beginning of time. But here's the truth most people never consider. You don't lack discipline, you lack a ledger. You lack a way to see what's really happening in your life. You see, people try to solve their consistency problems with emotion. More motivation, more inspiration, more hype. But discipline doesn't come from hype, it comes from clarity. We keep track of our money, our passwords, our steps, our calories, everything except the one thing that actually shapes the future, our habits. And that, my friends, is where the real trouble begins. Because life, if you really want to understand it, isn't just a feeling or a dream or a burst of enthusiasm. Life is a ledger, a genuine, every line matters ledger. And whether you check it or not, the balance is always changing. Every day you're making deposits or debits. Deposits of discipline, learning, reading, honesty, good decisions. Debits of procrastination, excuses, wasted time, careless moments. The problem is not that people are irresponsible, it's that they never see the math of their own life. They don't see the pattern. They don't see the accumulation. They're living emotionally instead of accounting logically. And once you understand this, something powerful shifts. You stop asking, why am I inconsistent? And you start asking, what am I recording? What am I adding? What am I subtracting? You stop relying on moods, which change with the weather. And you start relying on numbers, which tell the truth. Tonight, we're going to take that truth and put it to work. Tonight, we're going to build a ledger, not the kind you hide in a drawer, but the kind you live by. A system that makes discipline simple, visible, and yes, consistent. Because once you see your life as a ledger, you'll finally understand why the balance looks the way it does, and more importantly, how to change it. Now let's take this a little deeper. Because if you truly understand what I'm about to explain, you'll never look at your habits or your days the same way again. When I say life is a ledger, I'm not speaking in poetry. I mean it quite literally. A ledger is nothing more than a record of transactions. Money in, money out, assets, liabilities, debits, credits. And the beautiful thing about a ledger is that it doesn't exaggerate, it doesn't make excuses, and it doesn't forget. If you deposit $5, it writes down 5. If you spend 10, it writes down 10. No emotion, no debate, just the truth. Now imagine applying that same principle to your life. Imagine that every action you take, every choice, every habit, every thought you entertain is quietly being recorded. Something added, something subtracted. A deposit of energy or a debit of strength. A deposit in your self-respect or a debit from your confidence. You see, that's how life works. You may not check the ledger, but the ledger is always checking you. Read a page today, deposit. Scroll for an hour, debit. Took a walk, deposit. Put off the project again, debit. You don't need judgment to understand your life, you just need the ledger. Because once you begin to see your days not as isolated moments, but as entries in an ongoing account, you finally understand why some people rise steadily, quietly, predictably, and why others slowly drift away from their own potential. And here's what's fascinating. Most people aren't failing because of one big bad decision. Oh no. Most people decline because of tiny debits, little unnoticed withdrawals that accumulate over time. And they don't even realize it's happening because nothing feels dramatic in the moment. A skipped workout here, a delayed task there, one more excuse tomorrow, no collapse today, so it must be fine. And that's exactly how people get in trouble. Because the ledger doesn't care if the moment feels small. It just records it. But the good news is this. The same principle works in the positive direction. You don't need a heroic day to change your life. You just need a string of small, consistent deposits. A few minutes of learning, a short walk, one honest entry, one small disciplined act. Over time, the ledger starts to shift. And that shift, my friends, is the beginning of transformation. Once you understand life as a ledger, once you really see it, you gain something most people never find. Clarity. And clarity is the birthplace of discipline. Now let's talk about something that touches every person in this room. Why is consistency so hard? Why do we start on Monday with enthusiasm, and by Wednesday we're negotiating with ourselves like a politician avoiding a tough question? The answer, my friends, is simpler than you think. Most people try to stay consistent using emotion instead of structure. And emotion, as you know, is a wonderful servant but a terrible master. One day you feel inspired, and the next day you feel tired. One day the sun is shining, and you're ready to conquer the world. The next day it's raining, and suddenly your dreams can wait. But here's the truth. You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because you're unmeasured. You fail because the consequences of your choices are delayed, invisible, and quiet. If eating a donut instantly added 10 pounds, nobody would touch the stuff. If skipping a workout immediately removed a year of health, you'd never miss a day. But life doesn't work that way. Life is subtle. It hides the results of your small decisions until the accumulation becomes too big to ignore. That's why inconsistency feels harmless in the moment. The debit doesn't hit until much later. And there's another reason. Human beings are naturally drawn to comfort. Your brain is always looking for the easiest option, the warmest blanket, the path of least resistance. It whispers, do it later, you deserve a break, just this once. And without a system, most people believe those whispers. They mistake comfort for self-care, procrastination for patience, and avoidance for rest. Meanwhile, the ledger writes down every one of those debits quietly, accurately, without judgment. Motivation won't save you from that. Motivation feels wonderful, but it's like a spark. It burns bright and disappears quickly. You can't build a life on sparks. You build a life on structure, on discipline, on clarity, on knowing exactly what you're adding and exactly what you're losing. That's why the ledger matters. It moves you from emotional guessing to numerical truth. It takes your habits out of your feelings and puts them into black and white. Most people can't stay consistent because they rely on passion instead of accounting. They try harder instead of tracking better. They keep hoping a new wave of inspiration will fix everything. But inspiration doesn't fix your life. Habits do. And habits don't live in your heart. They live in your ledger. Once you understand that, consistency stops being a struggle and becomes something far more manageable, a matter of daily transactions. Now let's roll up our sleeves and put the principle into practice. Because it's one thing to understand that life is a ledger, and it's another thing entirely to begin writing in it. Most people never learn how to track their habits, and because they never track, they never truly know why they drift or why they grow. So tonight, I want to show you how to track your life the way an accountant tracks a business quietly, honestly, and consistently. First, understand this. Your ledger doesn't need to be fancy. You don't need a complicated app or a designer notebook. You can start with the back of an envelope if that's all you have. What matters is not the tool, it's the attention. It's the awareness. It's the daily recording of the truth. I've always said, a simple system you use is better than a complicated one you abandon. So start simple. Now, in your ledger, you need to focus on what I call the three great categories of deposits: strength, skill, and character. Strength is your physical vitality, the choices that add to your energy, your health, your stamina. Skill is your learning, the books you read, the practice you put in, the sharpening of your mind and your craft. And character, oh, that's the big one. Character is the discipline to keep your promises, the integrity to follow through, the courage to do what must be done even when nobody's watching. If you make deposits in those three categories every day, your life will change just like a bank account grows when you put money in the right places. Here's how you record it. At the end of each day, not weekly, not monthly, but daily, ask yourself one simple question. Did this add to my balance or subtract from it? And then write it down. That's it. If you went for a walk, mark it. If you read 10 pages, record it. If you completed a task you promised yourself you'd do, write it. Deposits, 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 and just as importantly, track your debits. Not to shame yourself, but to see the truth. Scrolling mindlessly debit, procrastinating debit, breaking your promise to yourself another debit. Not to punish, but to clarify. Remember, the ledger isn't emotional. It doesn't care if you were tired or busy or stressed. It simply records what happened. And that clarity, my friends, is worth more than motivation. The key here is honesty. Don't decorate the truth. Don't rationalize it. Don't smooth out the edges. Just write down what happened. If you made a mistake, write it. If you made a deposit, celebrate it. But always keep your entries honest. Because the moment you begin to lie to your ledger is the moment you begin to lie to your future. And here's what will surprise you. The very act of recording begins to change your behavior. You start to notice patterns. You start to catch yourself right before a debit. You start to make deposits because you're looking forward to writing them down. Visibility creates accountability. Accountability creates change. And change creates a new life. If you track your money grows. If you track your habits, your life grows. That's the habit ledger. Simple, powerful, transformative. And once you begin using it, consistency becomes less of a battle and more of a natural result. Now, once you begin keeping a ledger, the next step is where the real transformation begins. And I call this step the audit. Every successful business, every successful investor, every successful individual knows one thing: you cannot improve what you refuse to examine. And yet, most people go through life hoping, wishing, assuming, never stopping long enough to look at the actual numbers of their habits. But the audit, my friends, is where clarity is born. It's where progress is measured. It's where drift is exposed. And it is, without question, the secret sauce of consistency. The audit is simple. Once a week, say a quiet Sunday evening, you sit down with your ledger. No drama, no judgment, no guilt, just the facts. You look at your deposits. You look at your debits. You look at the patterns. Did you drift this week? Did you grow this week? Where did you stay strong? Where did you slip a little? Most people avoid this moment because they're afraid of what they'll see. But what they don't realize is that the ledger already knows. The truth is already written. You're not facing failure, you're facing information. And information is the beginning of wisdom. Then, once a month, you take a deeper look. This is the moment where trends appear. You start to notice that every Tuesday you struggle. Every morning is strong, but evenings get sloppy. Or maybe you notice that reading is easy, but exercise keeps getting pushed to tomorrow. That's not a moral failure, that's insight. That's data. And when you bring data to your life, you stop relying on willpower and start relying on awareness. One of the most powerful audits you can ever perform is what I call the turning point audit. This is the moment when a person gets honest enough to tell the truth on paper. You look at the habits that have been quietly draining you, those little leaks in your energy, your time, your discipline. And for the first time, you see them not as personality traits or limitations, but as debits, withdrawals, small losses adding up. And when you see it clearly, something extraordinary happens. You become free to change it. You see, the audit isn't about guilt. Guilt doesn't build your future. Awareness does. When you look honestly at your ledger, you're not punishing yourself, you're empowering yourself. You're saying, I want to know where I stand so I can decide where I'm going. Most people live in hope. A few people live in truth. And the ones who live in truth, who look at their life the way an accountant looks at a balance sheet, they are the ones who change, grow, and eventually win. And here's the beautiful part. Once you make auditing a habit, you begin improving automatically. Because what gets measured improves. What gets reviewed strengthens. What gets tracked transforms. A life without an audit is guesswork. A life with an audit is direction. And direction, my friends, is the foundation of consistency. When you know exactly where you stand, you know exactly what to do next. That's the secret. That's the audit. And once you learn to face the numbers, not fear them, you gain something priceless: control. Now that you understand the ledger and the audit, it's time to talk about one of the most powerful principles in the human experience. I call it the law of accumulation. And if you truly grasp this one law deeply, honestly, it will change the way you live, the way you work, the way you grow. Because the law of accumulation explains something that most people never fully understand. Your life is the sum of tiny choices, not big events. Think of a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top, it's just a handful of snow. Not impressive, not powerful, not threatening. But with each roll, one flake at a time, it gathers more. Nothing dramatic, nothing explosive, just steady addition, turn after turn, moment after moment, it grows. And then, somewhere halfway down the hill, something magical happens. Momentum. Suddenly, the snowball starts pulling in more snow on its own. Bigger, faster, stronger. That, my friends, is accumulation. That is the power of tiny actions compounding over time. Positive habits work exactly the same way. Read 10 pages a day and you don't feel smarter tomorrow. But keep reading for a year and you'll know things you once thought were reserved for the gifted. Walk for 20 minutes today and you're not suddenly fit. But walk every day and your body becomes something new, something stronger. Save a few dollars each week and you may not feel wealthy. But give it time, give it consistency, and one day the balance surprises you. How did this happen, you ask? It happened because you made deposits when nobody else was watching. Now here's the part most people forget. Accumulation is neutral. It works just as powerfully in the negative direction. A little procrastination each day accumulates. A little neglect accumulates. A little excuse here, a little distraction there. Every one of them adds up. And if you let those small debits roll long enough, they become their own snowball. Suddenly your energy's low, your confidence slips, your ambition fades, and you don't even remember how it happened. But the ledger remembers. The ledger has been recording every small withdrawal, waiting for you to notice. That's why I tell people, you don't need a dramatic failure to ruin your future. All it takes is a pebble in your shoe ignored long enough to slow your journey to a crawl. A few minutes wasted each day. A small promise broken, a habit delayed. These are the quiet debits that compound faster than you realize. And without awareness, they accumulate silently, automatically, inevitably. But the opposite is wonderfully true as well. You don't need a dramatic breakthrough to change your life. You don't need a heroic transformation. You need a small deposit, done daily, done honestly, done consistently. Accumulation will take care of the rest. You see, the early stages of compounding always feel slow. You're doing the work, but the results hide for a while. And that's where most people quit. They mistook slow for failing. They forgot that all growth is invisible at the beginning. But if you stay the course, something extraordinary happens. One day you look at your life, your skills, your confidence, your health, your opportunities, and you say, when did this change? And the answer is simple. It changed while you were busy making small deposits. Day after day, entry after entry. The law of accumulation was working in the background, adding up every disciplined choice you made. So ask yourself, what am I accumulating? Are you building a snowball of discipline, opportunity, and growth? Or are you quietly gathering a snowball of regret, delay, and wasted potential? Because the truth is, you cannot stop accumulation. You can only choose which direction it takes. And once you understand that your future is nothing more than the sum of your small daily entries, you'll realize something liberating. You are always one good deposit away from changing the trajectory of your life. Now let's talk about something extraordinary that begins to happen once you've been keeping your ledger for a while. And I don't mean a week or two. I mean when you've really begun to record honestly, review consistently, and understand the true arithmetic of your habits. Something subtle begins to shift, slowly at first, then unmistakably. You begin to build a new identity, not by force, not by pretending, not by chanting affirmations in the mirror. No. Your identity changes because the evidence of your life begins to change. And when the evidence changes, the story you believe about yourself changes. You see, most people walk around carrying old labels. I'm inconsistent. I'm lazy. I never finish what I start. I've always been this way. And their life continues to prove them right, not because the labels are true, but because there's no system to produce new proof. But the ledger, my friends, is your proof. Every deposit you make becomes a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Every act of discipline whispers, see, you can rely on yourself. Every small completion strengthens the foundations of confidence. And this is how identity is truly built, not by wishing, but by witnessing your own behavior day after day. When you write down your deposits, you're not just recording habits, you're documenting character. When you acknowledge your debits, you're not just listing mistakes, you're building awareness. And awareness leads to choice. Choice leads to change. Change leads to identity. That's the process. That's the miracle. People think confidence comes from talent or from winning big. No, confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. And the ledger gives you a written record of those promises kept. Bit by bit, you'll notice something remarkable. The things that once felt difficult begin to feel natural. The habits you once resisted become part of the rhythm of your day. The old temptations lose their grip because they no longer align with who you see yourself becoming. And who is that? Someone who makes deposits. Someone who tracks. Someone who grows. Someone who is accountable not to pressure, but to purpose. And then something even more wonderful happens. You begin to trust yourself. And self-trust, my friends, is one of the greatest forms of wealth. When you can count on yourself, your word, your discipline, your intention, you walk differently, you work differently, you live differently. You stop negotiating with your weaker impulses because your identity is too valuable to trade for cheap comfort. You begin to think, someone like me doesn't skip the work. Someone like me doesn't default to excuses. Someone like me keeps the ledger balanced. And that kind of identity isn't built in a day, it's built one honest entry at a time. This is why I say the richest people I have ever met weren't always the ones with the biggest bank accounts. They were the ones with the richest habits. The ones who invested in character, in kindness, in discipline, in learning. These are the deposits that build a surplus of respect, a surplus of opportunity, a surplus of self-worth. Money can come and go, but the wealth of who you become, that's permanent. So if you've ever wished you could reinvent yourself, start here with a ledger. Because the moment you begin recording your deposits, you begin rewriting your identity. And the moment you rewrite your identity, you begin reshaping your future. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to declare it to the world. Simply let the ledger tell the truth. And over time, the truth will become a new version of you, one built on evidence, discipline, and accumulated strength. Now, let's take all this good philosophy and bring it down to earth, because wisdom unpracticed is just potential energy. And the ledger only works if it becomes a daily part of your life. So let me give you a simple set of steps you can use to begin tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Because the best time to start a good habit is the moment you realize you need one. Step 1. Choose 3 daily deposits. Not 30, not 13, just 3. Keep it simple. 1 for your strength. Maybe a short walk, a few stretches, or a healthy meal. 1 for your skill, reading 10 pages, practicing your craft, learning something new. And 1 for your character, finishing the task you promised yourself you'd do, telling the truth, or showing a little discipline when it counts. 3 deposits, small, simple, doable. Simplicity is the key to consistency. Step 2, identify 3 debits you want to eliminate or reduce. Not to punish yourself, but to bring awareness. Maybe it's scrolling mindlessly. Maybe it's running late. Maybe it's procrastinating on something that matters. Write them down so you can recognize them when they show up. Awareness is half the battle, sometimes more. The moment you name your debits, you reclaim authority over them. Step 3, choose your ledger format. Use a journal, a spreadsheet, a small notebook, a whiteboard, anything you like. Don't wait until you find the perfect system. A simple notebook can change your life if you use it with honesty and consistency. And remember, the ledger isn't supposed to impress anyone, it's supposed to inform you. Step 4, commit to a 7-day trial. 7 days of writing your deposits and debits. 7 days of truth. 7 days of seeing your life in numbers instead of emotions. I'm telling you, 7 days of tracking will teach you more about yourself than 7 motivational speeches. Because reflection reveals reality, and once you see reality, you can begin to shape it. Step 5, schedule a weekly audit. Just 10 minutes, sit down, look at your entries, and ask 3 simple questions. Where did I win? Where did I drift? What do I want to improve next week? No judgment, no drama. Remember, an audit isn't punishment, it's guidance. Step 6, shift from emotion to awareness. Instead of asking, do I feel like doing this? ask, what will this do to my balance? Instead of asking, am I motivated, ask, is this a deposit or a debit? The ledger teaches you to think in consequences, not conveniences, and consequences build character. Step 7, use momentum as your ally. When you see a week full of deposits, you won't want to break your streak. You'll feel proud, you'll feel capable, you'll feel responsible for your future. And that feeling earned through evidence is far stronger than motivation. It's the quiet dignity of discipline. My friends, success is not built in extraordinary moments. It's built in ordinary days, lived with just a little extra intention. With a ledger, you remove the guesswork, you remove the excuses, you remove the fog. What's left is clarity, and clarity, applied daily, becomes power. So begin tonight with 3 deposits, 3 debits, and 1 honest ledger. Let the first entries be the foundation on which you build the next version of your life. You don't need perfection. You just need participation. Your future is waiting for your first deposit. And now, my friends, as we bring this session to a close, I want you to take a moment, just a quiet moment, to reflect on what we've discussed. Because when all is said and done, when the day is over and the world is silent, you are the one writing the story of your life. Line by line, choice by choice, deposit by deposit, debit by debit. And the most important realization of all is this: life keeps score whether you do or not. The question is not whether the ledger is running. The question is whether you are paying attention to it. Every habit, every decision, every small act, these are the numbers that determine the sum total of your days. And if you want to change your life, you don't need to wait for a miracle, a breakthrough, or a perfect moment. You simply need to start keeping score, not with emotion, not with guilt, but with clarity. Because clarity is the birthplace of discipline, and discipline is the pathway to personal freedom. Look at your life with honesty. Celebrate the deposits. There will be more than you think. Notice the debits. There will be fewer than you fear. And remember, every day offers you a fresh page, a brand new line, a new chance to write something you can be proud of. Yesterday may have been a day of debits, but today can be a day of deposits, and tomorrow can be richer still. Don't wait for someone else to hand you a surplus. Don't wait for the world to give you permission. Start building it yourself. 1 entry at a time. 1 simple discipline at a time. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, improve you, and remind you of the balance you're trying to build. Pay attention to your environment, your associations, your routines. These are the quiet architects of your future. And above all, let your ledger keep you honest. Let it keep you growing. Let it keep you awake to the life you are building. Because the world rewards the person who keeps good books. Not perfect books, good books. Accurate books. Consistent books. You don't have to win every day. You just have to stay in the game, keep making deposits, and let the law of accumulation do what it does best. My friends, at the end of your days, it won't be the debits that define you. It will be the richness of your deposits, the character you built, the discipline you practiced, the kindness you spread, the growth you pursued. So keep making those deposits. Keep tending to your ledger. Keep building the life that reflects the best of who you are. Because the best is yet to come. And your ledger, your future, is waiting for you to write the next line.